Today's lesson, I'm going to share with you 3 things that are going to help you hit your driver better. It was a lesson that I gave to one of my students recently, and it really got him striking it well. I'm going to share those things with you today. So without further ado, let's get stuck into this lesson. When this chap came to me for a lesson, what we found was that as he was hitting his driver, his strike wasn't very good. We found that the distance was a little bit lacking, and overall the performance of the driver just wasn't where he wanted it to be. And a lot of that to do was all because of his angle of attack. So what I mean by that is, as the driver's coming into the golf ball, the way it's coming down towards the golf ball is either actually ascending, because what we would want to do when we've got a driver, we want to hit it on the up. But what we found with this chap, he was always hitting it down. Now, you might get to a point where you hit it sort of level, but as long as we've got somewhere where we are actually hitting it on the up or getting close to that, we're going to start to see that we launch the ball better, we'll get more distance from it, and we'll also keep it a little bit straighter. Because one of the things that happens when I hit down on it, I would actually start to swing across the golf ball. So if I were to just peg one up here now and show you what would actually happen as I was going through here, we peg our golf ball up, and you might actually notice this if you're someone who's got a driver that looks like it's been put through a shredder on top of it. You would notice that you've got loads of scuffs and scratches on top of it, because when you start to hit down on it, you would peg the ball up like so, and then as we come through, when we hit down on it, we start to swing across it more. So all of a sudden we would get shots a little bit like this chap who I gave the lesson to. We see something like this where it launches low and it doesn't get that flight that we want. So ideally we want to try and get that ball a little bit more on the up. So the first thing that we talked about with the lesson was all about the tee height, and it seems so simple, but it's something that's got to happen. If you've not got the correct tee height, all of a sudden you're more geared to actually hitting down on it. Now, it might seem a little bit scary as you go through it, but the first thing that we've got to do, if you just come in close here for me, as I place that driver there, as I actually put that into the golf ball, we can see that the majority of the ball is above the top line of the driver there. Now, for a lot of golfers, as you would look down on this, you would think, I'm going to sky that, I'm not going to hit a good shot, but that's because you've probably had it down somewhere along this line where we can see that the face is pretty much covering all the golf ball there, and we can see that, you know, it isn't pegged up at the height that we would want. So what we've got to try and do, first things first, is get this ball actually pegged up at the right height, and it'll take a little bit of time, and it's something that as you go through it, I would suggest starting out on the driving range as you go, learn to peg it up. If you think of like the tees that are electronic nowadays that we see a lot of driving ranges, 4 settings, you might be on 2 or 3. We've got to learn to get it on 4 as we start. We've got to start sweeping it up a little bit more. So as we do this, you know, get that ball to a point where it's quite a way above the face really. So as I set up there now, we can see that it's actually somewhere above that golf club face, because as we start to do this, even if I just put a little spritz on my club face here and just show you where the strike comes from, get a little bit of that on there. Now that I've pegged it up, and this is a great way as well just to monitor your strike if you've got some dry shampoo on there. As I actually make this swing, and now that I've pegged it up correctly, yes, it's gone a little bit left, but the good thing now, we can start to see that this golf ball is actually coming out a little bit higher on the club face. So that would be the first thing. You've got to check that as you go to your driving range or you go onto the golf course and you start to practice. Just be aware of what tee you're using. Is it too low? Do you feel like the face is really over the top of the ball, or do you actually feel like the golf ball's up above the club face? From there then, we can start to look at some of the more intricate things. The next 2 things that we're going to look at are setup, and then how I'm actually going to deliver the golf club down into the golf ball. And with setup, what I found with this chap again was that as I was going through the lesson with him, it became glaringly obvious, you know, one of the reasons why he was hitting down on it was all to do with his tilted setup. Now, he thought, and he'd watched a lot of YouTube videos as well, saying, well, you know, when you get into the driver, you've got to do certain things. But as he went through it, what he thought he was doing, he wasn't. So a great way would be, if you know, as you're watching me here now, set a camera up there. You've got a camera on your phone, place it down, or even a mirror or a window, whatever it may be. But the first thing we've got to try and feel, and a great way I got the sort of message across to my student, was all about the logo of the golf ball. If we think that every golf ball that we use has a logo on it, Callaway here, if I just put this logo now facing towards your camera here, and I put it down onto the tee peg like so, as I stand and look at this golf ball now, I can't see the logo. If I get the correct setup and feel that now I tilt my spine away from my target, my gaze looks almost to the back of the ball, and now I can see the Callaway logo. From here, where I've got no spine tilt, I can't see it. Here, I tilt myself, I can start to see that Callaway logo as I'm going back. So a real simple thing, and he sort of really latched onto this as we were going through it, was all about feeling this little tilt to see the back of the golf ball here. Try and find that logo that you go through, because once I've done that and I look at my setup now, I look like I'm ready to launch this golf ball upwards. If I went excessive in the other direction, if I was this way, it would look like I'm ready to hit the golf ball down into the ground in front of me. So I've got to see that as I generate this tilt, I'm looking like I'm ready to launch the golf ball up from there. So I get in, I've got the right tee height, I'm looking for the logo at the back of the golf ball, and now from here, as I go through this one, I'm starting to launch that ball a little bit higher each time, all because I'm starting to do the correct things. Then the third and final thing that we talked about was all about the delivery of the golf club. Now, if we think of it in this way, real simple, two wedge pros here. We've got either ascending or descending. We want something that looks a little bit more like this, but what I find with a lot of my students, we would see it more like this. So we would see that the golf club is coming down the ramp here as opposed to going up the ramp in this direction. So we've got to try and see that we want this. We want an ascending blow. So when the ball would be at the end of the ramp here, we want to be coming up into it. We don't want to be going down into it. And a real easy drill that you can do at the range as you're starting to go through this. If you just put your tee in place, you get two golf balls, go about a driver head's distance from your tee peg and place these golf balls out there. Place the tee peg at the height you would have it normally, so we can see there it's up nice and high. I then adopt that tilt that I've got, imagine looking at the back of the tee peg, and what I asked my student to do was make a golf swing, and what we would see normally was that as he was coming through, he would hit the tee peg and then he would go down and hit the golf balls because he's going down and through the tee peg. What I wanted him to try and do, once he's got the correct ball position, once he's got the correct tilt, is make a golf swing where as he's coming in, he would sweep the tee and go up over the golf ball. So a couple of smooth, slow swings to start off with. I can just clip the tee, I don't hit the golf balls. So again, up, clip the tee, and don't hit the golf balls. If you start to hit these golf balls out in front of you, and maybe give yourself a little bit of extra room as you start out if you feel a little nervous by it, but what we see is that as we go through, we would deliver more of an upwards blow, catching that tee and where the ball would be, and then I'm going up over the golf balls as opposed to into the tee and down into them. So real simple thing, and it's just a feeling and a nice little drill that I'm able to work through, get my little brushing sensation. Then as I go through it, I would place one ball on, get rid of the other one, don't hit them if they are there. Adopt these 3 points now where I go here, tilt, looking for that logo at the back of the golf ball, feel like I'm going to sweep it and miss the imaginary balls up in front of me. And they're a little bit toey for me, but I'm starting to get that launch that I want as I'm going through. So a real simple thing, and it's one that if we can get that angle of attack better, if I feel like I'm hitting up on the golf ball more, I'm going to start hitting better drives. So go through that lesson there, check your setup, check that tee height, and then feel that we've got that sweeping motion, and we're going to see that you're going to start to hit better drives. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. If you have, do remember to hit that subscribe button for me down below, and I'll see you in the next lesson.